Hey there, welcome back. I'm Mark. We are on day 5 now of the build of this Prusa MK4S printer. So here's the state of the printer as of the end of yesterday. And we've got the tool head ready to go, and it's starting to take shape and look like a real printer now. So that's exciting. Today we are on chapter 6, which is just the installation of the LCD for controlling the printer up in the front, and then I think some wiring and some cleanup of wires and that sort of thing. Looking ahead in the instructions, I think this is a fairly quick one, so I'm gonna grab everything that we need and let's get started. All right, so here's our LCD screen. I'm gonna go ahead and take the cover off of that, the protective film, and yep, that's that. And then we've got these two casing parts for it. These are not 3D printed, they are injection molded parts. And we begin with this cover part, I guess. There's this little area here where we are supposed to stick this little rectangular reflective adhesive backed piece on here. So I'm going to line this up over on this side and then just press it down in place. All right. Next, we take our LCD and we slide it up into here. There's these two tabs up top that it slides behind. Yep, and it sits nicely in place. There's also two vertical tabs on the sides here that help you center it left to right. Oh, I dropped it. And I already have a fingerprint on it, so I'm going to use my shirt here and just clean that edge a bit. All right, that's looking much better. Now our cover goes on, and then there are 3 screw holes here, here, and here that we can go ahead and use to attach that cover on and secure it. All right, and then there's one more. This little grounding connection here screws in place with the final screw that holds the case on. Up next we have the ribbon cable, which they say here the end that has the tag here is supposed to go back towards the control board. So we want the other end, which is this one here, and it just snaps on like so. And then this grounding cable here has this little spade connector, and it just slides over the top of this. And flipping this thing over, I guess we'll turn it this way. They have a knob here, which does have, there's a flat side obviously on this post here, so you have to line up the inside of the knob here so that it fits on correctly, and then just press it down into place. It seems like this knob has a click action as well as a turn. And now we got to get this thing mounted on the front of the printer. So I'm going to grab the printer, get it situated here on the desk, hopefully in a way that you'll be able to see what's going on, and then we'll get started with that. Okay, so here's the front of the printer. It's laying on its back, pointing up at the camera, and there are these 4 holes right here on this front plate, and that is what this will attach into, right? So this will sit just like that, and there are 4 screws that go in from the back side to secure it in place. Something like that. So now that you've got the idea of what this looks like, I'm going to turn this so that I can actually access the screws a little bit easier, and we'll get this screwed in place. All right, there we go. Threading those Torx screws in with the provided tool was a little bit hard. They just screw into bare plastic there, so it was a bit tricky. I almost resorted to going and getting my own tool, but as I said, I wanted to use the ones that came with the kit, and it worked fine. It was just a bit of a tedious process. All right, so now with that done, we are supposed to take all of these cables and run them through these 3 cable clips that we have installed here on the frame from earlier on in the build. I'm going to move the Y motor cable out of the way here. And so I think we'll put this yellow one in first. And they should just fit here in these 3 clips. And then there's a gap right here under the back side of the frame, of this middle piece here of the frame, for them to go underneath. So like that, and then we will stack. They cut this ribbon cable in half, which is nice because then you can stack the 2 halves on top of each other to slide them down into these clips. And again, this end can go underneath through this cutout in the mid panel of the frame. All right, up next we're going to connect up the wires to the power supply. So I've turned the printer on its side this way, and these are the terminals at the bottom of the power supply. I'm not going to be able to hold the printer this way while working on it, so that the camera can see what's going on, but there are 2 positive, 2 negative terminals here, so we're going to attach, you know, red and black wires as appropriate. And then there is this little screw right here that I'm pointing at that we're going to loosen, and we're going to put the other end of that grounding wire that attached up to the LCD. We're going to put that there. So I'm going to put those 4 wires on, and there's also this little black and white wire that plugs into this little socket right here. I'm going to do those with the printer facing a little bit different here so I can see what's going on, and then we will go ahead and route the wires underneath the printer over to the electronics enclosure. All right, so there are all of those wires in place. One here, the ground here, and then the 2 power cables here. And we've got this little cover that will go over the top of that. And there are 2 screws right here and right here that hold that down in place. There it is, all buttoned up and ready to go. Now we got to figure out what to do with these wires. So it's time for cable ties. And I've got the printer flipped upside down to try to get you the best view of this. The first thing is this Z-axis motor here on the right-hand side of the printer. We want to tie this down into this little channel right here. And so the way they want us to do that is by running a cable tie through here and then over the top of the cable and back through this little hole here. So these are holes that are in the metal frame itself. They're specifically designed to hold the cable ties. And then we can just secure this. Just like so, right? So it's just holding this wire right here next to my finger into that area. Now I think I am going to deviate a little bit from my goal of only using supplied tools, because I didn't like using these little needle nose pliers for trimming the ends of those zip ties. I would much rather use these nippers here that I use for trimming parts for model kits. So I find them more precise and easier to reach into small spaces. So I'm just going to do that. All right, so that's the first cable tie. Next, they want us to grab this whole bundle of wires that came out of the power supply, and there are, again, 2 holes kind of right here in the frame next to my finger here, and they want us to run those cables through here. Before that, actually, I'm going to go back a step here on the instructions. I didn't run these cables out of the bottom of the power supply and through these 2 cable clips, which they recommended doing as well. And so I'm going to do that real quick before we continue. Yeah, there we go. Now that's much better because that puts those cables in a nice little bundle right up against here where I'm supposed to put another cable tie. All right, next they want me to continue this bundle of wires over here, and they want me to join this Y motor cable. Here, let me move this so we get a better view. There we go. So there's another place for a cable tie here, and we're going to add in the Y motor cable, which I'm just going to run kind of this way and then over that way. And so we're going to capture all of those. And now we're going to take this ribbon cable, which is running through this gap here, and it's already kind of in the right place. They don't want us to capture this ribbon cable with the zip tie that we're about to put in over here, but they want to make sure that it's behind this other bundle of cables so that it's kind of pressed up against the wall there. So I'm just going to grab the rest of this bundle here and make sure that I capture that with the final cable tie here. All right, and now double checking the instructions. I think we are good. We're supposed to run all of these cables through this final cable clip that's in this extrusion over here so that then they can go up toward the electronics enclosure over here on my right-hand side. So I'm going to turn the whole assembly here a bit so that I can see that a little bit better. And I'm going to run all those cables through here, and then we will move on to whatever's next. All right, so it's time to plug things in, I think, over here on our control board. I've turned this and I've tried to organize things to keep the wires out of the way so you can see what's going on. Just as a review, we have two things coming in from the top here of the enclosure. One is this big bundle of cables that comes from our tool head, and the other is this little connector here, which is our X-axis motor. So those are coming in that way. We've already got our Z motors plugged in to these two spots here, and they're just kind of run up here. I've tried to push them out of the way. And then we have our new bundle of cables that all came from underneath the printer, which we just ran through all of those clips and cable ties and things down below. So these are power, and our Y motor cable is here as well. So we are going to start with the X and Y motors. So they want us to put the X in this furthest to the left motor driver connector up here, and then the Y, which comes from below, and I'm going to run it up along the side here with the Z motor cables, and we're going to plug it right here. All right, that seems good. This Y cable actually has a little bit of extra slack that I wasn't expecting it to have, but that's fine. All right, there we go. Next, we are going to connect this ground wire onto this terminal here. Remember when we screwed in the this PCB to the case, they specifically asked us to leave a screw not in that hole. That was long ago. That hole is for this purpose. So we'll go ahead and put our ground wire here. That looks good. And then we've got our 4 power, right? 2 red, 2 black. So one pair goes here, red, black, and then the other one, red, black there. Up next, they want me to take this ribbon cable right here and run it up along this outside of here. And then this is going to be hard to show you, but there's a cable tie that goes down on the underside here to hold kind of this bundle of power cables and then this ribbon cable in place. All right, so now we can clip our ribbon cable into place right up here on this orange connector. And then they want us to take these 2 bottom of the zip ties that we had preset long ago and go ahead and use them to hold this ribbon cable and the rest of the bundle of wires here in place off to the side. All right, and now they want me to take this final connector, which connects everything on our tool head board, and it just plugs right in here. And then with that, we can grab these other two zip ties and tighten everything down to keep this wire secure. All right, and so there's our electronics compartment all cleaned up and ready to go. And now looking at the final page here of this section of the assembly guide, I get to have 6 gummy bears. So that's exciting for me. Just looking at the bag here of gummy bears, I think that there are going to be extras left over. So like, that begs the question at the end of the build, do I just eat whatever's left? I think probably so, but we'll see. I'm curious to see how well they counted and how consistent the bagging is of gummy bears, because who knows how many were really in the bag to start with. So anyway, I'm gonna eat 6 of these, and then tomorrow we're gonna be back and we're gonna look at the Y carriage and the heated bed. And at that point, it really is gonna look like the completed printer. It actually might be completed at that point with just the final checks and everything to go before we can actually print with it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 gummy bears. And with that, I'll say have a good day, and I'll see you tomorrow.